Yes. So I'm going to introduce ourselves, Conscious World Club. So Conscious World Club is set up by Ellen and I based on a download, meaning it was pure non-logical intuition that said you're going to collaborate with Ellen. And I didn't even know her that much. So we got together and I just said to her, you know what, I got a download, I have to work with you. And she just felt into it. She said, yeah, that feels right. And we just started organizing things that we thought were fun, events, dinners, yeah, and made no money whatsoever, of course, because events don't make money. But we got to meet a lot of beautiful, amazing restaurateurs that were always supportive and who've become like really friends of ours. And so we just got to meet a lot of beautiful people. And then at one point we got to download, you're gonna create a game, an appreciation game. We did a pilot and now we're just running the games now. And we're also going to collaborate and joint venture with other people to get the game in other countries, but also to collaborate with other experts that just are amazing and who have such amazing content that we think the world needs to know more about these people. And so Daniel is one of these people. Daniel is a friend of mine. I've met him at a Dr. Joe event in Portugal. That was at the time when you could get to a Dr. Joe event without any problem. Literally, he had like, I don't know, these workshops, and I think he would be with like 200 people. You could literally even like make a picture with him, and you could maybe, you know, like it felt like Jesus just, it was like many, many years ago.
Where in Portugal was it?
Lisbon. So
I
it was
didn't even know you went there.
It was a beautiful memory. The first thing the way that I met Daniel was he was sitting next to me and we were doing the breath all the time and doing all these meditations and we were having dinner and talking about our Dr. Joe experiences, but also Daniel was already then like, you know, doing a lot of mystical schools. But what I love about Daniel is he's a bit like me. He was in corporate life, very successful in corporate life, super, super, you know, hardcore corporate life, earning lots of money, being very successful. But he also had this very spiritual side like me, a bit like woo-woo, you know, a bit like if I tell people they think I'm crazy. So we had an amazing connection. And at some point we started going to advanced retreats together. We started becoming friends. And then when I started setting up a mastermind with like super geeks, I knew Daniel would be one of them. Daniel was just one of those geeky people that would study, and would just become like a sponge and like a walking library. So that is how we became friends. And at one point, Daniel also started, I was there when he started channeling the archetypes. And as we were in a mastermind, I was one of the first people that he did a mastermind, a reading for, an archetypal reading. And I have to tell you, Daniel's archetypal reading for my career has changed my life. And his love life reading for me has definitely changed my life as well, because it was so confronting. It was unbelievable. He literally told me that in my love life, as soon as I built a home with somebody, the victim would show up. And then that was a few years ago, I was actually in a relationship, and every time he spoke to me, he listened to me, he said, Angelique, that's the victim speaking. And you know what? I couldn't get it. I was like, that's me talking, but it was the victim. Now I can see it. Every time I opened my mouth, the victim would start talking about my love life, about my partner. And so this was my love life, which was really, really revealing and very shocking to me, because it felt like I didn't even know what the victim was, but it was operating in my love life as soon as I would like try and build a home with somebody. And also, I think I had Saboteur very prominently as well in my love life chart, which is very, very, the thing is, it's not like bad, but it's just like, if you don't know, if you don't recognize it, it's going to come in your love life and in your business life, and it's going to destroy it. What was the best thing I think about Daniel's reading was it clearly turned around my career, because Daniel started reading my whole chart in terms of my talents. And then he saw, at that time, I didn't want to pursue a spiritual career because I'd been there, done that when I was in London, couldn't really make money with it. It was fun, you know, but it was a struggle. It was really a struggle, you know, compared to corporate life and compared to my headhunting and and other businesses. And I was like, oh my gosh, spirituality, it should be like a hobby for me. I'm just going to do spirituality to raise money. But actually, Daniel saw in my chart a lot of my fortune, a lot of my flow, a lot of my talents would be coming from a lot of the archetypes that I'm actually now using in our work, Ellen. So I had an angel, I had, I think, the alchemist, I had, a lot of very spiritual archetypes, the healer, and all of these things were not utilized in my corporate life. And actually, the reading that he did for me was like, if you're not going to, this is actually your path to success and flow. And I was like thinking about it, and then just something clicked in me, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't give up my healing or my spirituality as a business. And then I started shifting, and so I can only say that, Daniel, the way that when we mastermind about the victim and the saboteur, I really learned so much, and it has really informed me about how important the victim and saboteur is in even the game that we're designing, Ellen. Because I mean, they are so unconscious, these two forces, that people who are very powerful don't even know that they're a victim. They're running these patterns, in relationships and business, and maybe even in their self chatter, and they don't even recognize it. And that's why I was begging Daniel, please, 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 you need to enlighten us. And I think it's so important right now, because one of the biggest things, Daniel, was, Ellen and I realized this. When the lockdown happened, even in the spiritual communities where we all believe we create our reality, people started going into victimhood. A lot of people just went straight into victimhood, started talking like victims, started feeling powerless. And Ellen and I saw it. For some reason, Ellen and I just saw it, and we were like, we're not going there. We need to teach people to get out of the belief that they're victims. So we knew that we had to work with it. But then Ellen and I are very honest, we go in and out victim in certain areas in life. In certain areas, you can see your victim and you can say, whoa, I'm not going there. And in other areas, you just go straight into victim and you don't even know it's not you. So this is why I really want to thank Daniel for coming here and actually, giving us some real juicy answers about how do you recognize the victim in your life? What is the victim doing in your life? The victim and the saboteur. I think a lot of people understand saboteur, but they don't really understand victim. That's my sense. And also, maybe the first question is, Daniel, how did you recognize the victim? How did the archetypes come into your life? Can you unmute yourself? Wait, maybe you can't. Oh, that's me again. Wait. Unmute yourself.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here. So, to answer the question, I first came into contact with the archetypes about how many years ago? Like 6 years ago, say. So I was working with a coach in the USA, in North Carolina, and he invited me to. We had a small mastermind, so it was like an intensive 3-day workshop. And so it was great. I had some business coaching, and then it was a really hot day, and inside it was really cold. So he fetched us these kind of blankets to keep us warm with the AC. And I had this really lovely royal red one. And everyone was like, oh, that looks really nice on you. So I didn't think anything of it. And then later on, what happened is we had like a hot seat coaching. So I was in the hot seat and there were like 3 other people around. So I was being coached on an issue. And then he goes, I want you to go and get that red robe and the red throw and put it on and then walk around like the king that you are. And I was like, oh, okay. It was a bit weird. But I went along with it. I walked around like I was the king. And at first it was like a joke because like being British, you don't expect to be the king. But then as I started walking, something totally transformed and I became the king. And it was just like a total shift in being. I had no idea what came over me. But it was almost like someone gave me the permission to be king and then I became it. And then for the rest of the day, I went around, after the session, I went around to this park in this lake and I was walking around just talking to everyone like they were my subjects, which I never do because I'm quite shy, or I was quite shy and reserved at that point in time. it was just a total transformation. So I was like, oh my God, I need to understand these archetypes. So I did a lot of research. I read lots of books on the subject. I read King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And then Caroline Myss was the work that really spoke about the victim. And that's the system that I started to use because it was really powerful. And then I had the cards. And funny enough, I had bought the cards, didn't really think anything of them. And I think I left them in my house for about 4 or 5 years, and they were just stacked away. I think it was doing all the work with Dr. Joe, like really doing the meditations, my intuition just started to increase. And I just had this inkling to get these cards out, these archetype cards. And then I think I brought them with Angelique, we just started playing around with them. And I had used the angel cards that Angelique uses. And I was fine with them. I could do readings, but I never really had an affinity with them. And then I started using the archetype cards, and we played around just having the card upside down and just feeling what we sensed. And suddenly I just felt these emotions, these words, and I just started channeling the archetypes. I was like totally surprised because it was never something I expected to do. I think this was 3 years ago.
We were having so much fun, Daniel. We were just doing constellations with the blind archetype cards, and we didn't even know what we were doing. Yeah. But it was really profound. Yeah. Yeah,
it was very profound. And from then I thought, oh my God, I reread Caroline Myss' work. I did loads of readings for people. And I really mastered, like in 2 years, I just really mastered the archetypes. And yeah, something I love doing. They just provide so much insight. And what's great about the archetypes is they are part of humanity. So everything that dictates human life is governed by archetypes. So you can look at anything that's happening in society now and whenever, and you can see the archetypes running the show. So we have personal archetypes for ourselves, but then there are archetypes in society, like businesses have archetypes, countries have archetypes. And when you start to see a business or a country from an archetypal perspective, then everything starts to make sense. And then when you understand other people's archetypes, then you understand their behavior and you understand why people do the things that they do.
And you stop judging them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I know Daniel and I, we were always like looking at our love life. And I think Daniel and I were then dating a similar type of archetype. These guys were like athletes, and they were like, complete engineers. And, Daniel and I were like mystics. We were like with our heads in the clouds. And we were like dating these like really like athletes and engineers and scientists. And we're like, oh, where's the love? Where's the passion? But we were so attracted to these rational guys. It was so funny. And then, of course, with a reading, Daniel would just say to me, Angelique, you cannot expect an athlete or an Olympian engineer to be a romantic Don Juan or something. And I was like, okay, yeah, I understand.
But that leads me to a question. Does everyone have all the archetypes in them, but then we all have like a set that's overruling? Or do we have certain archetypes that we just don't have and other people do have them?
Yes, so we have 12. So using the Caroline Myss system, we have 12 archetypes. And actually, Carl Jung said that as well. And then over time, other archetypes will come in and out of our lives for certain events and certain times. And we can access, let's say, with Caroline Myss' work, there's about 70, but there's infinite number of archetypes, really. Let's say it's probably at least 200. And we probably have a facility with, like, let's say 30. So some are, if you don't have it, you don't have it. If you don't have the alchemist, you don't have the alchemist. Like, you're not going to develop it. So, for example, with Dr. Joe's work, like most of the people who do Dr. Joe and do it successfully have the archetype of the alchemist, which is a family of archetypes. So that's the wizard, the magician. So these people that have a facility of manifestation. So or for example, if someone has a visionary, then they tend to have psychic visions. So you either have it or you don't. It may be something you can develop, but it's not. Some archetypes are easier to step into than others, essentially. And what you all have in common are the 4 survival archetypes. So the victim and the saboteur are those. So those ones really are the baseline or the foundation to empower all the others. So for example, like I work with a few clients where they have the queen archetype, which is all about rulership and leadership, but you can't really step into those, like the king or queen or like the really powerful archetypes until you can stop the victim and the saboteur getting in the way, because otherwise you just can't you can't step into it, essentially.
And how do you find them in people? So you have a reading with you, and how do you find the archetypes in people?
Yeah, so they have a reading with me. So what I usually do, so I could just read people and read the archetypes, but it's better if people understand and research the archetypes themselves as well, because ultimately you want to develop a relationship with the archetypes such that they will speak to you directly. And people experience them in different ways, but there's a way where you either write to an archetype or you channel it depending on your facility. But yeah, I give people a list to go through, and then they'll shortlist their archetypes, and then we'll get down to a certain number. And some will be obvious. So like you can look at a person and you'll know like their top 2 archetypes because they're the ones that present themselves. So you know if someone is the archetype of a gossip because they'll be gossiping. If someone has an archetype of a princess, you kind of know. Or if someone has a business person, will likely have a king or queen archetype because they run a business, which is their kingdom. Not necessarily always the way, but there's certain tendencies, certain types. Certain professions will have certain types of archetypes as well. So one or two archetypes will be very prevalent and very obvious to people. Then the others will be a bit more hidden, and the people who know you well will see those.
So
and
one of the things
you want to know, some of them are like, it's like, I'm just thinking, one that was popping in my head is like the whore. I'm like, nobody would ever say I have that one in me, but that's also an archetype, right?
Well, it's actually the prostitute, and
Prostitute, yeah.
yeah, we all have
your
it.
value.
We all
Boosts
have
your
that.
value.
I'm like, I would be like, no, I don't have that one. Yeah.
Oh, but that's actually one of the best archetypes to have, because
Oh, yeah.
it's all about money and your relationship to money. So,
Oh,
and the prostitute is not about sex. It is about, like, some of the biggest prostitutes are investment bankers that get paid a lot of money, and they do their job. They hate their job, but they do it because of the money. Like that's really the archetype of the prostitute. But what I've noticed is those people who have a really strong prostitute are great business people or really good at their jobs. So, and the archetype of the prostitute stops you from doing things that compromise your integrity. It really is. It's about trusting yourself and doing the things that you love, and doing the work that you love to do, and knowing you can get paid for it.
I want us to focus on the 2 archetypes, because Daniel, of course, he could do a whole lecture and presentation about all the archetypes and, you know, how it would prepare us. But I said, Daniel, let's focus. People don't even understand the victim. Let's just go to the victim. And I was basically, because of what's going on in the collective, I was really confronted with the victim as well, you know, when the lockdown happened and how we were all triggered. And because we were teaching the appreciation game, we had to teach people how to not be a victim. And the way that Dr. Joe really was one of the key people that taught me that you become a victim when you do not take responsibility and you give your power away. And I think a lot of people don't understand when they give their power away, because Dr. Joe comes from such a high understanding of human nature and our connection to the divine, that we actually, when we transcend the so-called the self, the habit of the conditioned self, we become supernatural. And that is when we really express more divine qualities. So a lot of the time when people are in the habit of themselves, they are actually victims, because in that personality of self, who we think we are, and all the conditioning, we actually blame governments, we blame economy, we blame competitors, we blame, you know, taxation, we blame our parents, we blame a lot of people for not achieving the things that we want. And then we go into relationships, we blame our partner, we blame our ex-partner, we blame, some kind of astrology. And actually those are all examples of victim thinking, where people give away their power. And just as an example, you could find victimhood in one of the most powerful leaders. Some of the very, very, very powerful world leaders, they're always blaming somebody else, right? They're never taking responsibility. So we can see it so clearly for other people, but in our own lives. And all our community consists of people that take responsibility, that really want to express the highest vision of who they are, and that want to become masters of their lives. I want you to listen to Daniel to really understand how the victim is running in your life. So I want Daniel to really empower us with the knowledge of how do we recognize, like with a blink of an eye, when the victim comes up. Because, you know, like when you were confronting me with the victim talk in my love life, Daniel, a few years ago, I couldn't understand it because I was too much in the body of the victim. I was completely like so identified with how the victim thought, that you told me and I would be shocked, but I didn't know how to get myself out of it. So, but I think right now, as you were saying to me, Angelique, we need to get out of the victim. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get our lives together back on track post-lockdown. We need to prepare. So maybe can you give us a little bit around your thinking about why is this lockdown so important? Why is it so important that everybody starts to look at the victim and their saboteur? Otherwise, they won't be prepared for life post-lockdown.
Yes, so what's going on at the moment is actually the archetype of the victim, and it actually highlights it completely, because everyone on a societal level, we are victims of the coronavirus. Like we have no cure. We are susceptible to it. We're actually victims. So
I have a cure.
So this is a situation that sometimes you are technically the victim, but then it's how you be about it. Are you actually going to be the victim? So there's the difference. Something could happen to you, which means on a circumstantial level you're the victim, but then it's how you respond to it, which will tell you whether you're in the archetype of the victim or not. So the archetype of the victim is there to help you overcome your challenges, and it is one of the hardest archetypes to deal with because it's very tricky. So I've been doing personal development for a long time, and many people have been doing it. And the issue becomes that the victim gets very easy to hide. It's very easy for us we'll transform one area and then the victim will move to a different area and we won't see it because we believe we've overcome that victimization, but it's just shifted to another area. But there's two distinctions. One is the circumstances, how we deal with circumstances. So how we're dealing with coronavirus. Like, are we going to go into blame and upset, or are we just going to accept where we are and move forward? So there's quite a lot to the victim. So I'm just going to, at the first level, so how one identifies the victim. So with the work that I do, I use the sacred archetypes, or sacred contracts work of Karen Mays. And the way she breaks it down is a very useful tool for understanding where your victim is, first of all, because then you can see where it's likely to show up. So she uses the houses of astrology. So each house of astrology basically corresponds to a certain area. So I'll give you some examples. So the first house is basically, if you have the victim in the first house, I'll just run through a few examples. So there's 12 houses, and I'll give an example of where these lie. So then if you know where your victim falls, then it's easy to see where it is. So that's the first step. So for example, you've got the victim in the first house, that's the house of your personality in your body. So people who tend to have the victim there are basically, it's kind of, you're born with the energy of the victim. So generally these people who are born with the energy of the victim are the kids that were bullied at school. Maybe they were small, shorter than everyone else, or they just had the energy of victimization. And that may come through for whatever reason. It could be genetically, it could be handed down from the parents, whatever. But it's like people who have that energy of the victim that just attract people who want to victimize them. And for them, it's really understanding that. And the journey for if you've got the victim in the first house is really to overcome that and empower oneself. And it may be like, I can't remember if it's Jean-Claude Van Damme or Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh no, I think it was Dolph Lundgren. They were like really small at school and got picked on, and then they really worked and became bodybuilders and got really strong. So that was their path to overcoming the energy of the victim. So that's one example. Victim in the first house. Victim in the second house is money and value. So if you know your victim lies there, then you know you're going to have issues with money. So it's valuing money, or just growing up poor, for example, and not really handling money. So you've got victim in the fourth house, which is about the home and emotions. This is really where either we became victim because of the way we observed our parents' relationships or relationship to our parents, but really the victim is in our emotions. So this is where victims show up in relationships. You've got victim in the home, in the fourth house. It's generally around relationships. It's feeling insecure, victimizing oneself with one's thoughts.
Completely. Right.
Yes.
So me, yeah. And that's why when you told me, I wasn't aware, but actually now I can see it. And I'm working on it because it's soul destroying. It's really, the victim is actually disempowering themselves and talking themselves into a lot of horrible scenarios most of the time because of the way they think, and the way they feel.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you've got, so the fifth house, for example, is creativity, fun, manifestation. And that is really not being able to, either feeling you don't have enough time to be creative, or feeling like life is not fun, and maybe you work all the time, you just think that having fun is not important. That would be an example of victim in the fifth house. Just not being able to have enough time to express your creativity and do the things that you love. That would be an example. Or the seventh house, which is relationships, partnerships, business partnerships, marriage. So the victim there, this is kind of the classic victim perpetrator dynamic, where you get into a victimhood with one person, a business partner, or your marriage, where you just can't help but blame that person. It's that victim perpetrator dynamic. So when it comes there, that's an interesting place for it to be. Or victim in the 11th house. The 11th house is about how you see the world. It's about networks, large groups. And if you've got a victim there, you tend to kind of stop yourself from really going out into the world. I have victim in the 11th house. This is something I experience. Is like, I don't want to put myself on Facebook or social media.
We're forcing you to.
Exactly. That is what I'm overcoming, and it doesn't necessarily go away. Like, I have to just keep working on overcoming it. But yeah, so it's like how you see the world. You might see, for example, I work, like, coming from a corporate background, I'm always worried about, oh my God, like going from corporate background to like healing. It's like, what will people think if I become a healer?
I know. I had the same. I was in the spiritual closet.
Yeah,
I was in a spiritual closet. I even had like a secret blog.
Yes, I had one too.
Because I was like, all these headhunters gonna judge me. My bosses were making fun of me. But because they knew I was going to all these spiritual courses, they gave me permission to go to the US and travel and study healing. So, yeah. But they were making fun of me, but in a good way. I think they were really sweet. Yeah, I was really happy. Yeah. But it's in our head that we judge ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot. Yeah,
exactly. So those houses give you an idea, but really you can also break it down in just two areas. So the victim, does the victim show up in relationships? Does it show up with money? Does it show up in business? Does it show up with your self-image? Does it show up with being out there in the world? Does it show up other ways, with your weight, with your body? So that's another way to identify the victim.
So
those are the easiest ways
to figure out, like, in which house their victim is.
No, you have to kind of you have to have a consultation.
Notice, yeah.
You could.
So you could go through every scenario, like, how do I feel, like.
Yeah, you could kind of do some research on astrology and look at the houses and kind of read through what they mean.
Yeah.
It could be seventh house. For you, it could be seventh house, Ellen.
What's the
could be seventh? Seventh is relationships with partners, where you feel victimized by a partner. Mine is fourth, which is emotions, and so some other people might have it more in their body, or relationship to the world. And
I'm just trying to think how they will figure that out, like, so they can sort of just go through all the areas of their lives. yeah,
go through all the areas of your life and see where you tend to be victim. So let me have a.
There could be more areas, right? Because we've
absolutely.
Areas. I'm like, I'm there, doing this,
Yeah, a lot of areas, and we could just momentarily fall into victimhood as well.
But that leads me to another question, because also what I said in the beginning, like, everyone has the victim. But sometimes, as I said, we're talking to people, I'm talking to the victim, but they have no idea, because sometimes when you're in the victim, it's like you're in a trance.
Absolutely.
And you think it's you. You think this is just me. This is just me, and I'm just resentful, and this person should change. This person should be different, and it's them doing this to me. I mean, as soon as I think you go to resentment and other people should change, things outside you should change before you can be okay, I think that is, for me, that's a telltale sign that I'm in my victim and that another person is in a victim. And I think definitely also people who walk away saying, I'm not taking this, those people are not understanding, I think, co-creation at a very high level, the way that, Ellen and I and Dr. Joe and all these very, very mystical teachers are teaching, which is you are a vibrational match to what's showing up in your life. So everything that shows up in your life is your consciousness. It's a mirror of your inner consciousness reflected into the world coming in your life. And I think a lot of people I think a lot of people are not ready for it, but even the people that are ready for it, like the people that study law of attraction, go to meditate 3 times a day, go to every retreat, they're still probably sometimes still stuck in not recognizing the way the victim shows up in their life and how it actually keeps on making them repeat a lot of cycles with different people, different businesses, different countries or whatever, and not seeing that it's actually their victimhood recreating these cycles of lack of success or lack of achievement or lack of a breakthrough.
Absolutely. And it's very multifaceted. For example, you could be the victim. You could also place yourself in situations where you become the victim. So example is what example did I have? Like when you want to hang out with the in crowd or hang out with the crowd you think are cool, and then you'll kind of put yourself down in order to fit in, for example. That's the example. And then you find suddenly you're victimized for no reason. But also I'd like to add it with the victim. The victim is there to empower you, it's to show you where your weaknesses are. So it's really about creating a relationship with the archetype of the victim. So the role of the victim is to move from the victim to the victor. So it's there to highlight, it's a mirror, it's there to highlight areas where you need to transform, essentially.
I love that. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Also, you said at one of our masterminds, and most of our masterminds happen when I'm supposed to go to bed. And like Daniel is an hour behind and I'm already in bed in pajamas. And I was almost woken up when Daniel said, the victim is here to show you your self-esteem, and I was like, what? That was completely new to me. I was like, wow, I never ever, it was like a light bulb that came inside. It was like, of course, self-esteem is about if this victim does not have self-esteem, he is going to give the power away to somebody else and say, you did that to me, you did that. But if you have self-esteem, you would never say that. You wouldn't say, you wouldn't give your power away. You would say, I take responsibility. I am at least 50% responsible for what is happening here that I'm not happy about.
Yeah, absolutely. So also I want to add, the victim is also about compassion, because if we look at, so it's not just us as victims, in terms of level of power, you'll come across people who are more powerful than you. So there'll be a tendency to want to think, oh, I'm not as good as they are. And you come across people who are less powerful, and you may judge them or whatever. But the role of the victim is to show us that we all have vulnerabilities, we all have weaknesses, and actually it brings out the key actually is self-compassion. That's the role, because we're not perfect. We are flawed human beings. We're all divine at the same time. So it's that juxtaposition of being flawed and being divine at the same time. And that's actually the role of the victim, to show you that everyone is actually, everyone has their weaknesses, everyone has their strengths, and to have compassion for where you fall down, essentially.
That's so beautiful, Daniel, because you never channeled that when we were in bed having our mastermind sessions. All of us were on Zoom in different areas. Like we were always masterminding in the early morning or late evening. And some people would even call in from the Philippines and Australia. So they would have all these different time zones masterminding. But the self-compassion is new to me, but it completely makes sense, Daniel.
Yes, it's the work that Browne is doing around vulnerability. It's actually being able to be vulnerable and have strength in that vulnerability. That is an empowered victim, like realizing that you're not perfect and allowing yourself to expose those weak parts as well.
Would you say that the victim, the reserves are not a judgment? Because I think sometimes when we go and do self-development, when these parts of us show up, we become super critical and very frustrated. Like we start to beat ourselves up. We start to think, oh my God, I'm a loser. Well, I should know better.
And that is the victim right there. That's then the victim turning on us again. So we're using the victim to put ourselves down.
Yeah.
So we're victimizing ourselves, essentially.
Again, yeah.
So self-compassion, it's also compassion towards the victim, because it's also non-resistance, loving the victim, even if it's there and even if whatever it's showing us, and also accepting that it's a part of us and it's going to show up forever. It's not like,
loving the victim within. So essentially also the victim's there to establish boundaries. It's the force. So the classic example is, for example, a woman that is domestically abused or whatever. And it's like she will put up for a certain point, and then some point the victim would say, no, enough is enough. Like we need some fear, we need some courage, we need to overcome this, and you can overcome this. And the victim will lead you to your empowerment, where you just say, no, this is enough. And the victim puts up the barrier, it gets out of there. It's like we're not having
it becomes
any more.
the victor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because as long as somebody comes from a victim mindhood, they might not have the courage. Because the victim doesn't empower themselves because they don't feel strong enough. So this is why a lot of people stay in abusive marriages or abusive, like the corporate life. Because they don't really believe that they can find a better situation or that they're worthy of a better situation. I think actually when you're in a victim mindset, you're not really seeing clearly. How do people get out of it, Daniel? I mean, of course, the seminars like this, webinars like this, I think definitely we encourage, like, no, in our mastermind, I'm called the Tiger Mom for a reason, because I told Daniel that he's going to create a group energy clearing class for the victim and the saboteur because I need it. But apart from that, how can people get out of the victim if they don't even recognize it? They don't even know what it is. Like, because I think I now get it because Dr. Joe's talking a lot about it. Even Bashar will talk about it. A lot of the law of attraction teachers, definitely also the release technique, they show you your victim.
Yeah.
But how would otherwise people, Ellen and I were talking about it, that, to be really honest, sometimes we slip into the victim and you don't recognize it because it's so been your identity for so long. It's like a cherished abuse yourself identity, but you don't even know it.
And then when someone tells you, oh, you're in the victim, you're like, no, I'm not.
No, I'm not. Don't tell me no. I am right.
It's just
I'm
me.
suffering. Oh, it's that other person's fault.
So the victim is pretty tricky, but it's really your emotions. So you want to look at where am I feeling poor me? Where am I angry?
Have sympathy with my pain.
Exactly. And look for where certain, like, where do you not want to take responsibility? For example, let's take money, because that's a big victim one. Like, often people automatically say I can't afford something. And like, that is an example of where it's easier to be I had this for myself recently, so this is why I'm talking about it, where I was like, I noticed my instinct was just to say I can't afford it rather than consider, oh, how could I afford that something? And like, I had a big household bill because we realized we have some major works to our building, and I was like, oh, why I don't want to spend money on my building. So like, why is this happening to me? And then like, I'm getting demands from like legal demands, because that's kind of the process. Like, why do I have to deal with this? Like, this is not what I want to be dealing with. So I can't afford this right now. So obviously it's an inconvenient thing, and it is a victimization in some sense, because it's not something you're expecting.
So would you say it triggers a fight, flight, or freeze response?
Yes. Yeah.
So when you find yourself in fight, flight, or freeze, so if you're arguing for your limitation, like saying, no, it's not true, you're fleeing, you're suddenly escaping, you're not like picking up the bills, or you're not answering the phone, not answering texts, absolutely, or whatever. So that is when we can see the victim behavior, because they're so in fear or reaction that they don't see how they can actually proactively respond towards a solution, or a more empowered way of resolving this situation, whatever it is, money to relationship to a lawsuit, for instance.
Yeah. And it's also always something you get out of the victim, and it generally is about not avoiding really recognizing your power and being responsible for your power.
Not being responsible for your power.
Yeah.
Because it's very empowering as well to disempower yourself. And I was teaching this morning.
It's easier.
Yeah, it's basically, I was saying that actually when I was studying with Tony Robbins in the strategic intervention coaching training, he was reminding us that a lot of women get a lot of love and connection and significance through being a victim.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I said to the class, you don't do that to yourself anymore, because if I notice it, I'm not going to give it to you. I'm not going to give love and connection to your victimhood. And you should be compassionate to your victim and transform it, because otherwise you're always going to be disempowering yourself to achieve significance and love and connection. And it's a very, very it's a stuck place to be in, and you're just going to keep on manifesting lack of success, lack of wealth, lack of change. And those types of power that you get as a victim, what would we call them? Could we call them pseudo power, or what is it, the veil of power? But they're actually not even empowering, they're just actually illusions, or fake.
I wouldn't even call it power. It's more just getting to stay where you are.
Comfort zone.
Yeah, you stay in your comfort zone. It's well, similar to the Saboteur, which we'll come on to, but it's really the avoidance of growing, of being big. So
Absolutely.
for example, when I've tuned into the victim, and so I asked the archetypes, what is the maximum potential of this archetype? So the victim it's when you get to when you get to extremely empowered victim, it's almost like you command matter. So it's like Dr. Joe, where he just manifests all the time, because you just have this level of confidence and certainty where you just command things and they happen. So that's
Dr. Joe manifests flight, like airplane tickets, when his staff tell him there are no flights on that day, on that time, to that city, and he says there are planes, and his staff will be super frustrated, like, there are no planes, and then suddenly they'll be like, there is a plane. Like, it just materialized.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see it. We see it happening. We see him doing these things.
Yeah. And
he shifts timelines, I think.
Yeah. But anyone who has, I know Tony Robbins, I was just watching him today, actually.
Yeah.
Like, that is like, when you have a very empowered victim, you have very high level of self-esteem, and you just, it's almost, it is like, whether you believe you can command matter or not, but it is that sense of, I can command matter, and the world will just respond as I want it to, because I have such a high level of self-esteem.
That sounds amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Yeah. It feels so right, because it's true, because you can say you're commanding matter, or actually you're also commanding matter when you're not commanding it, because that's your belief. We're always commanding matter, whether we want to make it work or not. So we can command matter to, I'm going to heal, or I'm going to allow these clients to come to me, or I'm going to allow the lover to be with me, or you're commanding matter in such a way that they're blocked, but you're doing it from a different intention.
There's a huge difference when you know you can command matter. That is a powerful thing.
So that's the victor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the victim commands matter too.
Well, they're the same archetype. There's just the light and the shadow. There's the empowered side to it,
but
and the weak side to it.
Manifests the light, and the other one manifests the shadow. So everyone's manifesting.
The one in the shadow is manifesting the lack of it, and the desire and belief that it can't happen, and also feeling very sorry, poor me, for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you're in the victim, nothing much is happening really. It's almost a state of waiting. Like waiting is a form of victimization, because you're not realizing you actually have some power to do something. So it's the victim in its unempowered state is more of a passive phenomenon, whereas the victim as the victor in a self-empowered state is a very assertive, powerful force. That's a difference.
Can I ask a question, or is that not?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is, are you saying there is never a possibility of being a victim, or just an archetype of that you kind of are a victim, you behave very often like a victim? But if you are a real victim, for example, you are getting run over by a car, right? Or you are getting sued, which we can go deeper into and say, well, you attracted it, right? It's something in your thing that you attract those things, but you are definitely a victim. So are you making a distinction between being a feeling like a victim, like I had this morning a release session with my weight and with all that? I definitely feel like a victim there, which is, and I'm not a victim, I know that, that I can handle, right? Or I can change. But getting run over by a car, or being sued for no reason and things like that. Do you distinct that?
So you can be the technical victim, as in the victim of circumstances. That's totally true. So I don't want to go into the law of attraction and that you've manifested that, because I think it's that you don't always manifest things in that respect. I think some things are individual, but yes, we can all be technically a victim. We're all technically victims of the coronavirus. So these things happen. If you got run over by a car, then yes, you are the victim of that circumstance. So then, the archetype of the victim is then how you respond to things. Like, do you allow yourself to fall into self-pity? Do you give up, or do you overcome that situation? So if you're being sued, I mean, if you look at anyone in the public eye, at some point there'll be a victim of something. Someone will slander them, or someone will do I don't know.
Nelson Mandela, one of the biggest leaders, was a victim, you know.
Yeah.
Joe was a victim. He got hit by a car and then chose to be the victor and healed himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or just if we take the latest of George Flynn, right? The guy who was killed by a police guy. So for me, that is a victim, you know, if we don't go into the whole manifestation thing and attracting thing, that for me is a true victim. Whereas I am not a victim. I make myself to a victim with my what we had this morning and with many other things, or in partnerships, or that I understand. It's just, so I just wanted to clarify if you make a distinction from real victims to victim mode.
Yes, I do. And you probably can trace like things that happen. I'm not going to get into victim blaming, but for example, with a legal situation, there may be a point at which you could trace the point at which that situation occurred. So you can become a big victim just from a series of actions that you've taken over time, for example, until that builds up until you become a victim of that. So when I could say, for example, the flat that I have, like having this big bill, I wasn't knowingly the victim, but we as a collective in the building haven't really been looking at the maintenance for a long period of time. So now it's all building up. So yes, we could technically say that we're the victim, but we could also be responsible that we haven't really thought about maintaining the building, for example. Or if you have a lawsuit, could be maybe there's something you did in that situation over time that caused it to happen. There's lots of complexities to it, but it's really
how we respond.
It's really about how you respond, because obviously we're not going to get everything right all of the time, and there will be random events or things that seem random which happen to us anyway. So, and we're not always going to have the consciousness to always be in the right vibration to attract the right things at the right time. We're going to go off, right?
So let's go now to the healing part, because this is really, of course, where our audience is very interested. Ellen and I are really aware that there's so much about the subconscious, and especially doing theta healing, emotion code, you know, actually after working on ourselves for many, many years, and I started in my 20s, you know, and I'm almost 50 now. Can you imagine that you're surprised, like, why do these things still come up? And it is because they're very often in the subconscious mind. So they don't even show up until through life circumstances and crisis. They keep happening, that you have like a wake-up call. You think, why do I keep attracting this? And then you can be mirrored back, like, because I'm not taking responsibility. Every time I'm blaming somebody else, and now it's time to wake up. And what would you say around healing techniques for really rigid victim and saboteur? I mean, or unless you want to speak about the saboteur first, because I think saboteur is easier to recognize somehow.
Let's see. Well, the healing is pretty much the same, but the two different distinctions. So really, so I use theta healing generally, just because I've trained in that, and for me, it's a good way to dig into beliefs. But really, I just notice my reactions. So I notice and the more you notice your states of being as you come across situations, the easier it is to be able to transform things. But for me, I look at what's going on, what am I reacting to, and then I just look at the limiting beliefs that are there. And some of these things are not easy, because like in theta healing, there's different levels of beliefs. and ways of being that we create. So some happen from this lifetime, some are passed down genetically, so they're harder to spot, and then some are pendulums from society, some are from past lives and other experiences, and some are very deep rooted in our soul and are very difficult to detect. So we can all do work on certain levels. Like I did landmark for a while, and that was very useful for kind of digging into incidents that happened in my own life. But
that you can remember.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That I can remember.
Conscious mind still remembers that you felt like a victim and then took a series of decisions that made you adapt to that identity. But if you were talking about ancestral stuff or the soul level, we can't even find them in our memory bank.
Exactly. I mean, I remember, you just have to get someone to help you, basically. You need a healer, or like a theta healer or whatever technique. And when I remember doing Dr. Joe and being at a workshop, and I was meditating, and then I noticed I was really working hard to meditate. And I was like, you're not supposed to work hard to meditate, what's going on? So, and my intuition told me, you don't feel worthy. So I went out and I saw the theta healer to work with this worthiness issue. And then we discovered it was ancestral, and it was from slavery. And then the theta healer cleared it all out, and it was a very profound experience. I just cried for like 5 minutes because it just washed through me. Actually, that's what actually prompted me to actually become a theta healer. But there are some things we just can't see. So so we can look at what's going on in our day-to-day life, but if there are things which are just so deep, so ingrained, then it's likely not something from this life, from something that you can remember, and you basically need a healer to work with, essentially.
And I can tell you that a few weeks ago, Daniel worked with me on a very deep, on something that's very chronic with me, which is the victim in the fourth house, which is the relationships with home and emotions and with partners, intimate partners. And of course, I mentally, consciously been working on this for many, many years. But when you were working on me, I was feeling nauseous. Like I was feeling like physically when we're doing the pendulum test, when we're doing the testing for all the beliefs that I had, we came down to a soul tear. There was something happening in my soul, where my soul couldn't believe something. Like I think it was I couldn't believe that I could ever have love, and it was so deep that it was when he did the healing on me, I completely shifted. Like it was like night and day. And if you could have told me that it was my soul and what happened in that energy session, like I would not have known, because, after spending so much money on all these mental therapies and not getting down to the level of the soul, it was like really profound, and it was like so worth it, and this is the thing, if I hadn't worked with you, I wouldn't have a clue, because with theta healing, you actually need to test the beliefs and you need to test the origin. And you're very intuitive as well, because every theta healer is different. And Daniel just found out, wow, it's actually leading to your soul. And it was so profound, but definitely, how could I have ever known? There was no way for me to be prepared for that, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's just, theta healing is this technique that works really. So yeah, I totally agree.
So sorry, like there are, like, sometimes I try all these different techniques. Like some techniques don't really believe in the soul, they don't believe in past lives. What is your experience around, like, sometimes lots of people do hypnotherapy, or they do like a more things like CBT or something like that. Would those therapies be useful to work with these deep-rooted type of victim and sabotage behavior, especially if people have been walking around with these patterns for a long time?
They will go to a certain level, but they won't go to the level of the soul. They will go to the level of what happened in this lifetime. For stuff around ancestors, past lives, you need someone who probably knows what they're doing. And definitely, I've experienced soul level beliefs. I've experienced ancestral beliefs. I've experienced all of them, like past lives, and my clients have as well. And some of our lives are not even on this planet, which I've recently discovered. So there's a whole, like, we are so complex. Like there's always more to know. There's always more to dig into who we are as human beings. So people who say that there's no past lives, I think they just haven't delved enough, really.
We're human beings and we're
soul.
interdimensional. We're also
Yeah.
interdimensional. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So could we go to the Saboteur? Because I'm so excited to hear about the Saboteur. Is another archetype that I'm really good at.
Yes, the Saboteur is my favorite one, actually.
And I'm not laughing because I'm endorsing it. I'm laughing about it because I think once you recognize it and you commit to healing it, you can actually laugh about it. But
Yeah.
when you're not laughing about it, it means you don't even recognize it. It means that you're using it as a defense mechanism. So a lot of the time now when people are in my class, I can be really light about these things because I do not indulge these things being in my life. I spend a lot of money working with healers. And I just say, if it's here, it's gone. It's transformed already. So I have a lot of synchronicity, and Ellen knows this, with Victor. The Victor archetype keeps showing up in my life everywhere I go. So for me, it's like, there's no way that these things are going to keep me down. But the Saboteur feels powerful, right? The Saboteur feels more like a Lara Croft or something, or like I don't know, Han Solo or a Jedi.
Yeah. So when I read archetypes, I get to see everyone's like Saboteur, and all of them actually. And what I know it's about a Saboteur is really the receptacle of our power. So it's when we are not demonstrating our power and moving it forward, it gets sidelined into sabotage. Because really, life is about change, and as souls, we want to progress, we want to move forward. And when we don't move forward, that energy gets siphoned into the Saboteur. So when we keep ourselves stuck, and that Saboteur will then, after it builds up, it will lash out. So actually similar to what's going on with the riots in the US, like that is the Saboteur building up to such a level where it's like, now I'm ready to sabotage, like we're not moving forward. So with the number of deaths that they've had, with Black people being killed, like nothing has been done, like it's being ignored, integrity's been out, nothing has been addressed. And then it builds up to a point where it's like rage, essentially.
Yes, absolutely.
And then that's when the sabotage comes out. And we all have that. So our sabotage might be different, but like it really varies. And again, it depends on the house, but often people will sabotage their relationships. They will sabotage through their speaking. Some people, their frustration might come out when they speak, and they damn it, they say things that they don't mean, or say things which are cruel. So the Saboteur is really when we're not using our power, and it will seep out in destructive ways, because we have the power to create, we have the power to destroy. So when we're not creating, that energy needs to go somewhere, and it will tend to come out and into destruction. Yeah. And that's why the Saboteur is so powerful. Like if you get in touch with your Saboteur, often it has that anger, that rage, that sense of power that's not being used in the world.
But it's almost like an abuse of power when it comes out. It's like an aggression or an over expression of destructive power instead of the healing power, or constructive power.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone mentioned Kabbalah. I study Kabbalah. Do I know this, Victoria? Sorry, I just saw the chat. So the Saboteur. So the good thing is when you can see your Saboteur, you will realize how powerful you are. And that's a good thing, because then you can channel that rage into something productive and something positive. So I'll give you some examples of where the Saboteur will fall in the houses here. So, I'll just give you examples so you get a bit of example how they work. So the third house is the house of communication and messaging. So when you've got the Saboteur there, it's about your Saboteur will come out in your speaking. So you will say things that disempower someone, or you might even be so bad as to destroy people's dreams, or really kind of have a destructive language where you piss people off, or you just put them down with your speaking. So that's the Saboteur in the third house. You can empower that Saboteur in the third house, where actually I'll talk about how you empower the Saboteur in a bit. We'll come back to that. So Saboteur in the fifth house is not allowing yourself to have creativity, not allowing yourself to be creative, like sabotaging all that creative energy. Saboteur in the sixth house is about your habits, it's your work, it's health, it's work, it's the routines, it's the day-to-day things that you do to kind of maintain life. It's very boring. It's the mundane habits and routines of life. So the Saboteur in sixth house is having is either procrastinating or just sabotaging habits that would be very useful to you. So it could be sabotaging. I have the Saboteur in the 6th house, so that's why I was struggling. So either sabotaging your career. So I've always worked as a freelancer because I don't like working as in a job. So it has its positives and negatives, right? So if you don't work in a normal job, then you don't build up, you don't get that build those relatedness, you don't move up the ladder. And then, for example, so I've noticed habits where 6th house, that's health habits, sabotaging your diet, for example, or eating poorly, or not exercising. Procrastination, that's a big form of saboteur as well, like not doing the things that you know you need to do in order to move yourself forward. So that, I think most people recognize that procrastination, that is a habit of sabotage. So 7th house, sabotaging relationships. So people who often find they will always fall out with their work colleagues, or they find that their business partners piss them off all the time, or their partners piss them off all the time. They find some way to get into conflict with their partner for whatever reason, sabotaging those. So so next house, the 10th house, which is very interesting, which is the house of your highest potential. So usually it's a career potential, but it could be just your highest potential, your manifestation. So I often find that there with the Saboteur in the 10th house is there. And it's basically it's fear of really stepping out into your own, fear of really reaching your highest potential. And often when you get people who you can see that they have so much power, so much potential, and they're not achieving it, this is when they have Saboteur in the 10th house. So it's going to be a lot of fears around, am I good enough? What will people think? Or just not seeing the opportunities that are there, or not capitalizing on those opportunities that are there, and running away from those opportunities. So Saboteur in the 10th house. And then Saboteur in the 12th house. The 12th house is the house of the unconscious. So it's people who unconsciously sabotage themselves. And this is one of the most difficult places for the Saboteur to be. And that requires basically a lot of outside help to be able to really see it. When you sabotage unconsciously, it's hard to understand why, but it's people who, if you were observing them, you'd wonder why do they keep doing stupid things. Like, I've got some examples, but I don't want to kind of name people. But I don't know, getting ill, doing something silly to get yourself ill, for example, or whatever that could be. Trying to think of it. Trying to think of an example without kind of showing, like putting people in the spotlight. But really, it's people who subconsciously sabotage. Like, you'll try to help them, and they'll lash out for no reason, and they don't even know why they're lashing out for no reason. That's kind of the.
Or you're trying to help them, and they actually sabotage even the help they're getting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't know why they're sabotaging. They just have this impulse, this instinct, and they don't understand it, but they just do it. They don't understand why they're doing it. That's an example.
So let's go there right now, because I think a lot of the behavior that we're discussing, we said the cause is sometimes subconscious. So how much can we take responsibility? Let's say something is ancestral. Can we say, well, it was something ancestral, it wasn't my fault? Or should we say, whenever something shows up through yourself, it's actually your responsibility to take care of it. And that is also an empowerment move and an empowerment act to actually own that, and not so much say, oh, it was my ancestors, it was my soul, it was past life thing, or whatever.
So the Saboteur is actually easier to work with, because really it's just looking at what are your hopes and dreams, what are your goals that you're not fulfilling on, because those are the things that are secretly causing you frustration. So it's actually easier with Saboteur, unless it's the Saboteurs in the 12th house, for example, or there's a misperception of, actually, so with the Saboteur, often it's just a misperception of reality. So you might feel that all people are against you, or you might feel that, let me think of examples. For example, you don't belong on this earth. You don't know why you don't belong on this earth. So those are generally, when people have those kind of beliefs, they're generally in the subconscious, they're generally past lives or soul level beliefs, or even genetic beliefs. But generally
or it could be something like, I want success, but then they have a belief, and we don't know where it comes from. When I have the success, blah, 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 blah. When I have the relationship, you know, that something negative comes up. So then they have everything going for them, and boom, they hit something and they're going to sabotage it. And because this belief, we don't know where it comes from, but it's still there. It's active.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good example. So, for example, if say you have a family loyalty, and like say you're going to be very wealthy compared to the rest of your family, and you don't want to have to deal with that, your saboteur will come in because like you have a goal, but underneath that there's a loyalty to live a certain life, and you'll sabotage that to stop you moving forward.
But it is because of the misperception of what this goal would bring. So it's really looking at their goals and dreams and all the hidden belief systems about what actually that entails. And it could be, if I'm successful, I'm going to lose my free time. If I'm having a relationship, I'm going to be abandon all my single friends, or I'm going to lose my autonomy to this family life or whatever.
And so there's actually, so there are all other examples where actually the saboteur will work on a subconscious level. So, for example, you might have an illness, or I remember when I would every time it came to do a video, like I have eczema, then I would get eczema flare up to stop myself. So the saboteur actually can work in the body as well. So it's not just unconsciously. Like, there was a point where I would avoid doing a video, and then I'd get something on my face, which meant, I can't do that video now.
But it was so unconscious that you didn't know it, right?
Yeah, well, that's not me consciously doing it. It's like my body is consciously manifesting it. So some people will do that. They might have exhaustion every time they want to do a certain thing. They might run out of energy. Certain illnesses could be a form of sabotage as well. Actually, it is actually a quite wide topic now that I'm thinking about it. So, for example, for myself, like I discovered one recently, actually. So, a decision I made at 16, when I realized I was gay at 16, it was like there were certain beliefs that I didn't even realize were there that I had recently. So when for example, being public, I read like when I was 16, it was like basically gay people were not really public at that point in time. So that was just a conscious belief that I didn't even realize it was there. And then I only discovered it a couple of weeks ago, and I was just looking at why am I fearing like putting myself out on social media? And then this voice just came to me and said, people like you aren't allowed to have a following. I was like, where did this come from? So when I delved into it, I was like, oh my God, that was a belief from like in the 1990s, where it was true at that point in time, but things have progressed, but that belief was still in my subconscious, and that was causing me to sabotage myself unconsciously, essentially. So
again, that requires self-compassion, right? To really work with this.
Well, it's more self-awareness, really. It's really digging in and finding out what's really going on. And self-compassion is useful as well, but it's really self-awareness and be able to dig. Or again, working with a theta healer who basically can help you with it. So it's really, I guess it's really seeing the pattern that's there. And if you don't understand the pattern, then get someone to help you just dismantle that pattern and see what's going on. Yeah.
So and Daniel, you in our mastermind, we started doing group clearings, and they were amazing because you were testing out the money beliefs on us.
Yeah.
And I will say, when we were doing the money beliefs clearing, the abundance block clearings, there were a lot of blocks that were really good for me. And this is basically because for years, I would wake up at 5 a.m. and I would study the abundance teachings because Bob Proctor said we should do that. And I was like, yeah, if Bob does it, I'm going to do it. And then later on I did it for Dr. Joe's meditations. But we would literally study abundance teachings for 3 hours a day, just really, basically replace all the negative scarcity thinking in my mind with abundance teaching. So actually, when we tested a lot of the beliefs, a lot of them were positive. But I remember when we did the theta healing belief clearing, there were 2 beliefs about money that kept me stuck. So from all the beliefs, all the beliefs were in place. I was completely in alignment with abundance. But there were 2 beliefs that I could never think of that were there, that were blocking my abundance. And one of them was, I cannot charge money because other people need it more than me. Like, if you're going to think like that and you don't even know you have that belief, right? That's going to block you. So my next question is, because I've seen the power of your work with us in the mastermind, I really encourage you to do group work. And this time I know, because Ellen and I see this victim behavior and saboteur behavior in a lot of areas in our clients' lives, but also in our own lives. And we were really saying, Daniel, can you download a program where we're going to do a group energy clearing for the group, for the victim and saboteur. And we ask you to think about what type of beliefs can we test with the theta healing and getting the downloads from the creator in a group if we were to work with you. And I know you designed the program because I was Tiger Mom telling Daniel that he had to do that, and Daniel got out of his saboteur and did it. Thank me later, Daniel. So what would you say would be the type of questions that we would test the saboteur or the victim on? Because, you know, I wouldn't even be that clear actually, because I haven't studied theta healing and I don't know that system very well.
Okay, so I'll share a few beliefs. So we go in categories. So we look at relationships, money, and then there's what I call foundational blocks, which are really around worthiness, safety, value, and control. So worthiness is feeling that you're worthy of whatever it is. So relationships, love, money, abundance, feeling that you're worthy of it. Feeling that then safety, feeling that it's safe to have it. So there can be many reasons why it's not safe. They could be ancestral, for example. So maybe for your ancestors, it wasn't safe to be wealthy, or maybe it wasn't safe to be visible.
Yes.
So I've encountered lots of ancestral stuff from slavery where basically it wasn't safe to be seen and be visible. So your beliefs keep you hidden. So you work through those. So then value, like really understanding your value and valuing the services you give, valuing yourself, trusting yourself, trusting others, trusting the divine, trusting the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And then
such
readiness.
Big themes, Daniel.
Absolutely.
You're just like, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's some big themes here for myself, you know?
Yeah, because when you work on the big things, the other ones are pretty small. Because often we will, like the obvious ones around money. So money is the root of all evil. Those beliefs, generally most people have already done. They've already completed those ones. So it's the deeper existential beliefs that we need to work on that actually really make a difference. So even readiness. So testing that you're ready to have what you want. So for example, if it's clients, I'm ready to have clients. I'm ready to be in a relationship. Often we'll say that we are, but then when you actually energy test, then you're actually not.
Yeah, and very often it's something that doesn't even belong to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so often it's like, what? Or I really want this relationship, but there's something in you. No, get out of here, get out of there. Or do you want the job? Then you're like, no, don't apply for the role, or sabotage it. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And then actually, and then it may just be. So for example, with the saboteur, when that saboteur comes up, it may be you're just trying to manifest things that you don't actually want and actually bored with. So often we're always trying to manifest money, or always trying to manifest the same goal over and over again. And actually a saboteur is probably going, I'm bored of this bloody goal, let's create a new goal. So it's like create something that's actually fun. So that could be an area that manifests as well. Let's see, what other? So playing big. So actually having it be safe to play big. Mm-hmm. And there'll be, especially the saboteur, there'll be often blocks around that. So that's what we're going to release as well.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. I was just putting a lot of pressure on Daniel because Daniel wanted to do a masterclass. And then I just said, I'm going to call Ellen. Ellen, what do you think? Masterclass. I don't think our audience wants an energy clearing. We're going to demand an energy clearing. And then Ellen said the wise thing, our audience already knows everything. We don't need to know a masterclass. We need to actually clear things. You know, that's what we're here for. We're ready to clear things. And all of you guys, thank me for channeling this workshop for us to work with Daniel.
We're the doers.
Yeah, well, that's actually what I prefer. I I actually don't really like teaching. I just like to clear things. It's easy.
Yeah. Boom, boom,
Download
boom.
all the good stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I can tell you guys, I did and this was my testimonial when we did the money clearing. I had another block, which was a big one. This was, if I become successful, I have to work really hard. And you know what? When Daniel cleared those 2 blocks for me, one of my businesses, it just basically, I think it quadrupled or something. Like literally, I was magnetizing people
In
to
1
me
month.
that were, yeah, like literally, I was sending you screenshots of my commission and my points, and literally these were just 2 blocks, and my abundance is very much in alignment, except for those 2 little beliefs. So can you imagine? I'm sure with the victim and the saboteur, I have a lot of things to clear, because we've seen it with my session in my love life, how many beliefs I had that were just like not in alignment with actually what I wanted or what I believed I wanted. And these are not things that you don't know it. You just basically, you get into situations and you think, what? Why am I sabotaging things? I just feel so unsafe. I'm not ready. I need to be a victim. And you just act out these really weird behaviors and you think, why? But actually, I really want to tell you, and this is why I'm so open, we don't need to beat ourselves up for having these behaviors, because they're also our lesson, right? They also are like gifts in a way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what you find actually is when you master the relationship with your victim and saboteur, they actually become your allies. So
Yeah.
the victim, actually, no, let's talk about the saboteur. The saboteur basically becomes your ultimate life coach. So
your inner Tony Robbins or Dr. Joe or I don't know.
Exactly.
or Yoda.
Yeah, exactly. The saboteur is very much matter of fact. Just do this, do that. Stop procrastinating. Get on and do this. Stop wasting your time.
It's done. It already happened.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, when you master those, you don't really need much else, because you'll start to be more self-sufficient, not that we aren't self-sufficient, but you'll start to be more self-motivated, I would say. And but you'll start to get a sense of your power and actually move forward in that respect, essentially. And
that feels so good. I don't know whether you guys can feel the energy of that. I can feel the energy of that. That's a real stream of consciousness that feels very loving and very creative, like the vortex. It feels like the vortex and the flow.
Yeah, and also within the saboteur is powerful. You can automatically detect other people's saboteur as well. So if anyone tries to sabotage you, you'll pick it up instantly, and you'll be able to sidestep it.
I'm gonna send you to a friend of mine. Here's his number.
Saboteur for Halloween. It's like a superhero.
It's funny because I was watching Tony Robbins, his seminar, and like the way he's able to zero in on other people is because he's so in touch with his saboteur. He can zero in when someone's sabotaging themselves and just like take them out of it like that. And that's what's also available when you get the saboteur. It's essentially the holder of your power. If you're not exercising your power, then it goes into this kind of vault of sabotage. It goes into your dungeon. But then when you get it out in your dungeon, it basically propels you to go towards whatever it is you want to go for. You become unstoppable, essentially.
That sounds so good. When is this class starting? I don't care whether it's oversold. I'm going to be in there, Daniel.
So it's starting 2 weeks on Tuesday.
Yes. How many sessions and what can people expect? And so some of you here have already done the money clearing blocks with Daniel. And you guys probably, I know some of you have had huge changes in their business life. They basically started taking action and started like stop procrastinating and things like that. Completely like having new websites and videos and everything up and running, and Ellen, you were there at the money and things. The thing is, like, we can never suspect what type of block we have, because the questions that Daniel comes up with are so intuitive and so like toward it's really relevant to the crowd that he works with. It's really amazing.
Yeah, the addition of the archetypes for me was like, oh my gosh, yeah, the prostitute. I was like, we need the and then Daniel channeled for each of us the archetypes for us. I was like, oh, okay, you're right. was really, very
It's humbling.
confronting and humbling and motivating too.
Yeah, because you
wanna
can
take
turn it
action, you're like,
around.
okay, because they're tools. It's not like, okay, now you're this.
It's not a verdict.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Tell us more about so who is this for? Let's say you never done any personal development work, you don't even believe in energy work, but you resonate somehow with this. Could people like that do it? Because most of our crowd is super spiritual, like done lots of work. How about people who are actually close to it? They actually don't believe in it, but they think maybe this is my last chance.
Yeah, so there's two things really I'm going to do. So actually, let me talk a bit about it. So essentially, we're going to work with the victim and the saboteur. We're going to get everyone to train you into identifying your own victim, your own saboteur, how to use that to empower you. The victim will be about compassion. The saboteur will be kick-ass, because that's the energy of each one. And you basically get to understand your own one. And we'll essentially clear out the blocks in the way of doing that. And we'll clear out the common blocks, which I spoke about. So you don't have to be experienced, because it's really about being open-minded. So when I do the clearing, I tune into source energy. I work with I basically look at the downloads that people need to what they need to clear, and sometimes we're downloading new feelings. So if you never, for example, if you've never experienced love, just as an example, we will download what it feels like that you can experience love. So then you get to, some people have blocks because they've never experienced that in their life. So for example, if you haven't experienced success, you don't know what it's like to be successful, we'll download those feelings so you get to understand.
Or confidence,
like.
or safety, or abundance, or believe in yourself. You know, all of these things, if we cannot, because law of attraction is about becoming a vibrational match. But if you've never had it before in your ancestry or in your soul, like I didn't have it in my soul, I never experienced it before in this specific soul constitution, it's really hard to actually then have the belief. And then, you know, you can work on yourself for many lifetimes. The downloads is what I really love about theta healing, because not only can you pinpoint where is the belief, where are you not aligned with a sort of belief system, you just don't know what it means. You know it intellectually, but your body doesn't know what it feels like. Yeah. Your consciousness doesn't have the software running, let's say. Yeah. And that is what we're doing in your group.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, so we are, sorry, we'll just put the light on. Hold on a sec.
I'm so excited about this group. I think I manifested this. But I manifested with a lot of force. Like I was texting Daniel, this is what we're going to do. I was channeling for you. No masterclass, Daniel. No masterclass. No, masterclass is boring. Who needs a masterclass? Come on. But post-lockdown, we need more than a masterclass.
Indeed. Yeah, so as I said, we're going to work with these archetypes. There'll be some homework to do as well. So there'll be some questions, because it's good to be introspective on these things and really delve in and understand your own saboteur and victim. So also, it's going to be intuitive as well. So it depends on the group and what people want to work with. So if we're finding it's more money, we'll go there. If it's more relationships, we'll go there. If there's more self-esteem, we'll go there. So it really depends on the group. But the sessions are very powerful because we're working with the energy of the divine. And it's basically downloading into your nervous system. So we download the beliefs that you want to have.
And look at my business taking off. That was stuck for many years. And when Daniel downloaded for me that I wasn't resistant to working hard, I actually had so many meetings, and I didn't have a resistance anymore. I just had lots and lots of meetings, but I wasn't feeling like a victim going to the meetings, right? I wasn't sabotaging it. I was like, oh my God, I love it. This is really why I love my business. Yeah.
What else do you want to know? So June the 2nd.
So it's 4 sessions, right? And of how many hours? 1.5 hours?
1.5 hours, yeah.
And the start date is exactly when?
It is, sorry, let's just get it up here.
Is it the 9th of June?
9th of June, yeah. It's Tuesday. Yeah, not this Tuesday, the Tuesday afterwards.
And so what is the price that you're going to charge? Because I think a lot of people need this. So I think,
it's a very discounted price, because I think my last workshop was $250. and my personal trainer is at 140. So this is actually £90. So it's
£90. It's a complete bargain.
Yeah.
And we did this because Daniel really wants to help a lot of people. So we don't want money to be a limitation. And I think this is a price where if you're not going to invest in it, I'm just, maybe you're already on top of the world. You don't have any victim, not any sabotage. But if you are actually thinking, maybe I should check on, maybe there are some limiting beliefs down there, maybe from my ancestry. Very often you can even see in your ancestors, let's say none of your ancestors have been successful in business or in relationships. You can actually see that there will be blocks there. It's like a matter of fact that there are blocks there, whether you believe it or not, So I would say to those of you—
scientifically that beliefs, the science actually proves that beliefs have been get handed down in our genetics. So
yeah, absolutely.
With animals.
Like panic attacks from the people who are in Holocaust.
Yeah, exactly.
The Holocaust grandchildren, they have panic attacks, and there's a lot of that stuff coming through. Yeah, and even with animals, I think they've proven it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you can't transcend it.
Absolutely, yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. So, so I, how would people know that this is right for them? Because I'm already saying, look into your own business or your relationships, and then look into, for instance, your patterns, and then maybe the ancestors, your parents, your grandparents. You could, and sometimes your culture. Yeah, like Black people, Asian people, we have complete different ways of relating to money, different ways of relating to relationships. I come from a Chinese culture where it's not really always healthy relationships, I would say. That not that I'm discriminating my culture, but there's a lot of very painful patterns there. In Black people, there's a lot of victimhood. There's a lot of slavery, and I've seen it a lot when I was doing the ancestor work with family constellations. People from different countries, you could have things with masculine, feminine, that where you as a woman feel super disempowered. Because that was the heritage of how women were treated. So, or you could come from a specific country where there were a lot of wars. And then when you have a lot of wars going on in your country, what will happen is that in your ancestry, there's a lot of fear, a lot of a lot of stuff going on around money and losing money and not feeling safe, so it can show up in a lot of ways that you can actually see, wow, I might have to look at why things are not going on. Maybe the history or the family that I'm born into, or just my history of specific patterns in my life can give an indication as to how this would benefit you, right?
Yeah, actually, interesting enough, I've encountered a lot of genetic limitations from World War II.
Of course. World War II and World War I.
Yeah,
I mean, I see it in family constellations. We're still working with World War I and World War II. That's why I'm like, oh my gosh, when is it going to stop? Yeah.
But I mean, to know whether it's right for you, well, if you're not feeling empowered at this moment in time, and it's really as simple as that. If you're not achieving what you want to achieve, if you're feeling disempowered now, and I think it is a time of disempowerment, because what I've noticed is, actually there's so much going on, so I'll just give you a few examples. But often we want to align ourselves to the group consciousness, which is fine because lots of people are in trouble, and there's a sympathy that we have with that. And it's important to have that sympathy, but sometimes we'll align ourselves energetically and on a belief level, on a vibrational level, we'll align ourselves to society, and that will limit us.
You're talking about mass consciousness, which is now a lot of fear.
Yeah, exactly.
Fear and victimhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mass consciousness is in victimhood. We have to be honest about that, because most of people don't believe that they are creating their reality.
Yeah.
And when they believe it, they're still just doing it like in an intellectual way, where they don't actually completely start to take in their power as I actually command matter. Everything that shows up is my consciousness.
Yeah. And in addition, like, we are going to be in a global recession. That's just is what it is. So that is something that we really need to empower ourselves around as well. And just the energies that are happening now, like, they will shift, but this is kind of a testing point. This is a time where most people are in lockdown. We're really dealing with, our stuff is coming up essentially. So this is the time actually to deal with this stuff. And I think, I get the sense, this is my intuitive sense, that this time period is very useful. It's very useful to work on ourselves and empower ourselves for what comes next. I'm not quite sure. I don't want to necessarily say what comes next. I have my theories of what's going to come next, and I know what's going to come next for me. I think around September, things will shift. I think basically those who've done the work and those who've empowered themselves will be in a basic, we'll be flying essentially.
Yeah.
So it's kind of now is the time to do the work, because if you don't do it now, then when if things get worse or basically when we come to later in the year, you just won't be prepared essentially. And even before, like luckily, I think you had Hogarth on. He's a friend of mine.
We interviewed Hogarth for the Vedic astrology, so our audience knows Hogarth.
Yeah, so I was lucky that like I had him around for astrological consultations, and even like was it November, December, he kind of predicted something was going to happen. So I didn't know what was actually going to happen, but I knew to prepare myself. So I was doing my healing, I was kind of raising my consciousness. So now I'm in this time period now, I feel very prepared. I'm still doing my work, but I arrived in the coronavirus situation, not as phased as, obviously I didn't know it was going to be a virus, but not as phased as it would have been, or I would have been. So yeah, I felt more prepared. It was quicker for me to take action. And I think there'll be another shift in September as well. So I think now is the time to really do the work. Like this is, in a way, there's lots, while people are dying and things that like bad things are happening, especially if we're light workers, now is the time for us to do our work. So it's clearing ourselves. It's also going out and helping other people as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is really like a gift essentially.
We have a couple of practical questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So Natalia asked what time the sessions will be. So it starts on Tuesday the 9th.
There'll be 8 p.m.
8 p.m.
UK. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I forgot to
Rolf is asking for some explanation on what exactly is going to be taking place.
So basically each week I will, so the main thing is we'll have a list of downloads to go through. I could show my screen actually. Basically I'll have a presentation. So we'll have a list of downloads that we're gonna.
Can you share your screen?
I don't know actually.
You should be able to.
Okay, let's see.
Click on share screen.
I'll need to get my Dropbox up. So I'll just talk while I'm doing it. So yeah, essentially I'll have a list of topics of beliefs that we're going to clear for. And I'll basically clear everyone and check that you've been cleared or you've downloaded. And we'll essentially go through that. I'll also teach about the archetypes and how to distinguish those archetypes, and then there'll be homework. That's the main thing that will happen. Okay, let me share the screen now.
Ellen, you've done the group clearings with Daniel. Can you explain a bit what actually happens and what you realized?
Yeah, we test for beliefs together as a group, and we go through some material, sometimes more than others, and the testing shows if you've got it or not. And yeah, it's
so one of the beliefs would be it is safe for me to be successful, or it's safe to be in a happy relationship. And then if you test negative, it means your subconscious is not going to allow you to go into a relationship or to be successful because it doesn't feel safe. So, and then you have to then download. And so if you have a negative belief that limits you, Daniel is then going to download the creator's understanding of that it's safe to be in a relationship, that it's safe to be successful, it's safe to stand out, safe to promote yourself, whatever it is, safe to have money, whatever it is that Daniel intuitively comes up with. And I can say from working with Daniel for many, many years, you guys know me because you're in the appreciation game with me. You're in a lot of the meditations with me. Daniel is my peer. We are completely at the same level in terms of super obsessive studying of an application of this stuff. But I think his intuition is really, really very, very high. And Hogarth told me when he did a reading for Daniel, Daniel has the gift of being a healer. My gift is being a teacher. Actually, my gift is I think teacher, alchemist, like teaching people how to manifest. Daniel is healer, so he can heal. He's very good in helping heal people. That's what Hogarth told me, Daniel.
It's true. I mean, I actually do physical healing as well, although I don't really advertise it. But I've had quite a few, a lot of actually. I basically, and this is actually what came out of the archetypes. When I discovered that I had the archetype of the healer, I had studied healing before, but then I kind of let go and trusted it. And I basically work more through intuition because I realized I have the archetype. I didn't need to study I don't need to study like a doctor. I just tune into the archetype of the healer, and I heal from that space. So once I discovered I had the archetype, it really accelerated my healing capabilities. But let me just give you an example of, I'm going to read out some beliefs. I can't share my screen for some reason, so I'll just read.
Oh, really? Let me try and make you.
I think it says you're sharing something.
Make co-host. I'm going to make you co-host.
Okay, so let's
see whether you can share your screen.
Okay, cool. All right, yes, I can.
Yeah.
One question, Daniel. Will people be able to figure out what their archetypes are in certain areas?
I don't think we'll have time for that, but if I get a download,
I would just recommend a private session then, because I think to do a live reading or a love live reading, that will shift yourself so much. And I think literally if you have business partners or partners, it would be amazing to actually do a reading together, or even for your business or for the profile of your client, because I know that Daniel can really tune into, let's say you're working in a business and you want to understand your ideal client. You need to understand what do they aspire to. If you're not the profile of your ideal client, you're never going to be able to communicate in such a way that your client feels, oh, that's my product or that's my service. So, I think these sessions are really full on. And from what I know, it's really, we're going to be full on just testing and downloading.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is an example of the beliefs we'd have. So we'd go through each one. So for example, struggles around money. I have to struggle to deserve what I get. Everyone would test that, yes or no. I have to struggle to get rich. We'd test that. My life is an endless struggle. So we go through all of these beliefs, and we'd essentially see if you have this belief or not. If you don't, great. If you do have that belief, we'll clear it. So then once you clear it, it essentially means you no longer have to deal with that. You no longer have the belief you have to struggle to deserve what you get. You no longer have these beliefs around money. So we'll clear out the common beliefs around money, for example, and then clear out the common beliefs around relationships and love, etc., etc. Actually, this is the wealth clearing one. So I may not do all of the beliefs from that wealth clearing series because that's a different course, but we'll just do the basics essentially. So yeah. Does that answer your question? Was that question answered? I'll stop sharing now. Cool. Someone asked the price. So the private readings are, so if it's the fee to healing, they're $140. The actual archetypal reading is £600 because this is a strategic session. So it's essentially 2 sessions of 2 hours. So it's quite in depth. I think I'll ask Angelique if we can give you a discount.
It depends on the entrepreneur. I think for some people £600 is nothing, and for other people it's a lot of money, and maybe there's another way that they can collaborate with you, right?
If I get enough interest, I could do a group version of that as well, where I teach people how to do that. That's a possibility.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was something I was going to say about that. It will come back to me. This one.
Yeah. Well, I can only say, Daniel is one of the healers that I work with because we're in a mastermind with each other. He's testing a lot of his products on me. I can tell you I benefit greatly from it. I have been healed by a lot of people that are in my masterminds, and they're the people, and Ellen and I don't promote people that we haven't worked with. You cannot pay us enough money to collaborate with you if we don't know what you're standing for. So we work with people who actually have benefited ourselves a lot in our understanding and application of transformation and growth in those areas where it really matters. So as we just discussed, a lot of these patterns, we didn't even recognize them when we were walking around them for many years. Now that we're maturing and we're really put under pressure by all these, about everything that's happening in 2020, all these, the Grand Stallion and the retrogrades that's going on. I think collectively we're forced to face our skeletons we're forced to face the areas where we must grow, because as Daniel said, we're not going to grow. You know, there's going to be lots of changes happening in the world, and if you're going to still stay in these old patterns, you're not going to be able to handle it. Even if you think consciously you can, subconsciously you won't. And that's really why I felt so strongly about encouraging Daniel to really create this course, and to actually really, you know, when we were downloading, we're saying, make it so affordable that it's not even an afterthought. People just want to be there, you know, because I think I haven't seen any course out there of just targeting the victim and the saboteur. And also you understand the victim in such on a level of complexity that a lot of people don't. And I really dare say that. So I would say this masterclass for you should be like a video that you put on YouTube, Daniel, so that people can really understand it and can maybe bring you in on higher levels, maybe in their organizations and things like that. But it's something that you could really work with, because I think it affects all areas of life, including leadership, including self-leadership, and including corporate life, you know, organizational development, etc.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, Daniel, I think it's still not completely clear what will be covered in the 4 weeks.
Okay.
So maybe just a little rundown on what the sessions will look like.
Okay, I'll share my screen again from the beginning. So this is the wealth clearing one, but it won't be exactly this, but it'll be along these lines. So this is the wealth clearing. So it's basically clearing around common blocks to money, success, and prosperity, helping you achieve your dreams with velocity. There's a list of beliefs you worked through. So beliefs around struggle, sacrifice, and hard work. Beliefs around making money being difficult to hang on to. Fears around having a lot of money. Classics, money is a root of all evil. Belief around success and failure. Fears blocking prosperity. Overspending. Beliefs about rich people. Poverty consciousness. So we won't be covering those exact ones, but be on similar lines. That's just about me. So really, just as about theta healing, essentially we have the conscious mind, which you're not working on. The beliefs that we're working on are in the subconscious or unconscious mind. And why we're clear is essentially, most of us are working on our vibration. So we're doing our meditation, we're moving forward, we're taking action. So we're moving in the right direction, but what's holding us back are these energetic blocks and beliefs. So we're going to work in this area here. This is basically releasing the brakes. So once you release the brakes, you can accelerate a lot more quickly. So that's that. So we work on this lower part, which is releasing the blocks via beliefs. So then we'll clear beliefs on these levels. So beliefs that have happened through your lifetime. So beliefs that you remember yourself. So like, oh, when my mother said this to me at 5 years old, that really scarred me and left me with this belief. That's that level. The belief
Not for life.
Exactly.
No, not for life.
Yeah. So belief from the ancestors. So belief from your lineage. So your parents' lineage. You may have inherited beliefs. Societal pendulum, so group beliefs from society. So it could be religion, it could be, there's beliefs around being an entrepreneur, there's beliefs around your society. If you're in Britain, there's beliefs that one shouldn't, I don't know, one should be seen and not heard, or one shouldn't stand out, like those kind of beliefs. And then beliefs on the soul, which are a lot more difficult, a lot more existential, and a lot more difficult to define, but includes past lives and beliefs which are ingrained in the soul. So work at these levels. So this is, so I kind of have a system which I work to. This is my system of manifestation, which is basically getting clear what you want, then clearing whatever's in the way. Then this allows your vibration to increase. Use your intuition to navigate whatever you're doing. You take action, and then that you gain awareness, which gives you feedback. So this is the system I use, but what we'll be focused on really is just this clearing, this aspect which is clearing, the slide in yellow. But it will help you, because I think everyone else is kind of doing something along these lines anyway. So I just focus on, this will be focused on the clearing, because I'm sure everyone's has intuition, they're doing the meditations, they're taking action in the direction they need to be. So we're going to be working on the clearing here. And when we do that, we do muscle testing. So really everyone wants to be hydrated when they show up, because that facilitates muscle testing. So yeah, and then we just start the clearing. So how it works, I've got a list of beliefs. I'll read the belief, you test. sometimes I might test for you depending on how the size of the group. If it was a no, as in if you have the belief, then I will clear that belief for you. So that's generally how it works. And we'll just go through a list of beliefs. So it'd be like that page of beliefs we'll go through, then we'll go to the next page, and we'll go to the next page, and so on. So it's basically loads of beliefs about making money, knowing how to invest money. So we're not working on this set, but this is an example. I haven't created the one we're working on yet. So blocks to becoming rich, beliefs around rich people, for example, what I download, and then these foundational blocks: worthiness, safety, value, control. We go into beliefs that impact worthiness. We go into beliefs about giving and receiving, beliefs about safety. So this one's about relationships.
Yeah.
About trust, beliefs about readiness and value. So this was for clients. People who've got clients. I'm ready to have clients. I'm good enough to have clients. I need to know enough to have clients. I'm ready to have my ideal clients. I'm ready to have my ideal business partners. I'm ready to have an abundance of my ideal clients. So we'll test that this is positive. Like, yes, I am ready. Yes, in my subconscious, I believe I'm ready. For example, number 7, people value what I have to offer. So often people say they're ready, but then when we do this test, please, people value what I have to offer, then it's no. And these are people who are generally undercharging. Like, don't think, oh, I can't really put my prices there. It's like, but will people want to pay? So like getting rid of that.
I can't afford it.
Yeah,
Nobody
exactly.
has money to pay me. I need to like take scraps and like just do my corporate job and do my hobby as a healer or my blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly. So then we clear that out, and then we teach you, instill the feeling that you know what it feels like for people to value what I have to offer. So yeah, there's just really examples. Playing big, some people have the belief I have to play small. Like often this comes from my ancestors. So mine from slavery was like, you have to be small, because if you're noticed, then so you could be killed, you could be singled out. So we will dig in and release all these beliefs that's stopping you playing big. Yeah, blocks around I can't afford it, not having the money investing. I'm showing you the money ones. Beliefs on success and failure. I know how to be successful. I know what it feels like to be successful. And that's it. Oh, and we may go into, I don't think we'll have time, but basically these are the 4 R's, which I call the main areas of blocks. So resentments. So these are what holds us back. Resentments about the past, regrets about the past, fear of rejection, or resignation. So resignation is those areas where we give up and don't believe we can achieve. So that's a tester. I don't want to kind of go into that. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what we're going to be doing.
This was amazing,
I
Daniel.
hope that makes it clear. Yeah. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is there anything else you would like to add that we have forgotten?
let's see. There was actually, I had a download about what the actual archetypes of the victim and saboteur want you to know. So I'm just actually going to read them out, just so you get a sense. So this is what the archetype of the victim wants you to know. You are powerful. The role of the victim is to have you realize just how powerful you are. So this is a process. Like, you could realize overnight that you're powerful, or it could be a lifetime. It depends on you as an individual. But when you work with your victim, you get to have a high level of self-esteem, high enough. Like, the ultimate is like you have a high level of self-esteem that you can command matter. That's the victim. So this is what the saboteur, the archetype of the saboteur wants you to know. I'm here for your empowerment. The ultimate desire of your spirit, of your soul, is to ascend in whatever way that looks like for you. We, as human beings, are here to experience life. Deep down, this is what you want. Sabotage is here to remind you of a better life that you want to have. That's the download I got from those archetypes.
Beautiful.
I'll leave that there.
It's a beautiful end. Thank you, Daniel.
Cool.
I want to honor you for
Thank you
your
so
brilliance, and those of you watching, we will we will basically post the link for the course under the video, the Facebook Live, and also in the Conscious World Club page, and on the recording. So, Alan, is there a way that people can follow us?
Us or Daniel?
Us and Daniel.
I put the link for Daniel's course in the chat, and they can follow us on Facebook as well, of course, and you go to the appreciation game in Mighty Networks. I can share the link. And yeah, it's the free section of the appreciation game. All right.
We'll see you there, everybody. Lots
Thank
of
you,
love.
everyone.
Thank you, Daniel.
Oh, thank you so much.
Hopefully we'll see you in the course. Bye-bye.
Amazing.